Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Major Motivation Podcast, where we talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. Today, I have the special honor of having the founder of Epic Fights, Epic Exotics, and also Stewart Estates, and an amazing investment portfolio, and a super serial entrepreneur, family guy, and just all the inspiration, not only for myself, for many others that follow him on his journey. Without further ado, welcome Jason Stewart to the Major Motivation Podcast. Beyond the intro, I wanted to kind of dive into Epic
Fighting
first, and just kind of go over, how that was created. How did you think of to do that, or did you come from the fighting background and say you want to do something on your own? How did that actually mature into what it is now?
Epic Fighting is interesting. Epic Fighting was the company that I was not trying to start anything like it. I've been in real estate for over 20 years. Made my first real estate investment at 21 in
Epic
2001, and then
first,
got my license a couple
and
years
just
after
kind of
that,
go over,
and helping other people
how
buy and
that
sell real estate. And
how
that was
that
like my
was
main
created.
gig.
How did you think of to do
One of
that,
the
or
real
did you
estate,
come
I
from the
don't tell
fighting
this part. This is like the
background and say you want
prequel
to do something
to
on
the
your own?
story. I don't
How
tell
did
this
that
part too
actually
often.
mature into what it is
But
now?
there was this
Epic
guy
Fighting is
who
interesting.
I
Epic Fighting was
found
the company that I was
on
not
a
trying to start
podcast,
anything
or
like it.
no, I found
I've been in real
Tim
estate
Ferriss
for
on
over
a
20
Joe
years.
Stump
Made my first
podcast.
real estate investment
This is
at
before Tim Ferriss
21 in
was big time.
2001,
So he was doing these
and
like
then got
kind
my
of a little bit
license a
smaller
couple years
type
after
of
that,
podcasts, just trying
and
to get his
helping
name
other
out there,
people buy
promote
and
his
sell
first
real
book, which
estate,
was
and that
4
was
Hour
like
Work
my
Week.
main gig.
Joe Stump was a real
I
estate coach.
one
He
of the
trained realtors
realtors
I don't
and
tell
loan
this part. This
professionals,
is like the prequel
and
to the story.
I
I don't
had
tell this
taken a
part too
lot of
often.
different coaching and
But
stuff
there
from
was
different
this
people, and his was
guy
called buy
who I
referral only.
found
And his whole
on
thing
a
was,
podcast,
instead of teaching you
or
how to
no,
market
I
and do all this
found
stuff,
Tim
uh,
Ferriss on a
let me
Joe
teach you how to
Stump
get
podcast.
referrals from the
This is
people that
before
you
Tim
already
Ferriss was
know
big
that
time.
like you
So
and
he was
trust you.
doing these like kind
And
of
that
little
was
bit
like,
smaller
this
type
is
of
my thing.
podcasts,
This
just
is
trying
what
to get
works
his
for
name
me.
out
I
there,
don't
promote
need
his
to be
first
cold
book, which was
calling. I
4
need
Hour
to
Work
be,
Week.
you know,
Joe
building
Stump was a
relationships
real
with the
estate
people that already
coach. He
like
trained
and
realtors
figure out
and
ways
loan
to just
professionals.
spark their mind and get more
And
referrals.
I
And so
had
he
taken
had
a
this
lot
guy
of
Tim
different
Ferriss
coaching and stuff from
on,
different people,
and
and
Tim
his was
Ferriss
called
was
Buy
saying stuff
Referral
that was
Only.
way out the
And his
box,
whole
and it
thing
was
was
just like really,
instead of teaching you how to
it
market
was
and do all
new
this
and cutting
stuff,
edge to me. And I was just like, man,
let
this
me
is the
teach you how to
opposite of how
get
I've been thinking.
referrals from the people that
And
you
then they
already
recommended his
know that
book.
like
So
you
I
and
got
trust
his
you.
book on
And
audio.
that
I
was
got his
like
book in
this
in
is my thing. This
hardback.
is what works for me. I don't need to be cold calling. I
And
need to be,
once I read it,
building relationships
I
with the
didn't want to
people
read
that I already
another
like
book.
and
I
get
went
and
back and read
figure
it
out
again.
ways to just
And
spark
once I
their mind and
listened
get
to
more
it, I
referrals.
was started all
And
over.
so he had this guy
I had
Tim
it on
Ferriss
CD.
on,
This is how back
and
in the
Tim
day it
Ferriss
was.
was
This is
saying
like
stuff that was
2000.
way out the box, and it was
I want
just
to say
like really
2009.
and
It was
I
new and cutting
probably
edge to
have
me, and I was
since
just like, man,
read
this
and
is
or
the
listened to
opposite
the
of how I've
book
been
at least
thinking.
50 times.
And then they
Yeah.
recommended
And
his
one
book,
of the
so
things
I
he
got his
said
book on
was
audio. I got his book in
most
hardback.
people will tell you to
Um,
follow your passion.
and
And that's
once
great
I
advice
read it,
because when you're
I didn't
starting
want to read
something,
another
whether
book.
you're
I
trying
went
to
back and
make
read it
money with
again.
the
And
podcast
once
or
I
you're trying
listened
to
to
start
it,
this
I was
business or
started
this
all over.
nonprofit,
I had it on
most
CD.
people are going to
This is
quit
how
because
back in
there
the day
comes
it
a
was. This is
point
like
where the
2000.
reasonable thing to do is to
I want
quit
to say
because there'll be certain
2009.
stuff
And
that comes
I
up that
probably
is
have
just
since read and or
so
listened to the book at least
draining
50
or
times.
it's such
Yeah.
a big
And one of the
obstacle.
things
So
he
they'd be like,
said
you know what, let
was,
me just cut my losses and move on to the next thing. Let me
most
just do the
people
day
will
job
tell
thing.
you
It's
to
not worth
follow
it,
your
right?
passion.
And that's great
And
advice
he
because
was
when you're
right.
starting
Epic Fighting,
something,
it took me
whether you're
7
trying
years
to
to
make
make a
money with
profit.
the
So anyone
podcast
in
or
their
you're
right
trying to start
mind
this
would have
business
quit
or
a
this
long, long
nonprofit,
time ago. It was
most
like
people are going to quit
any
because there
business
comes a
person would have been like,
point
this
where the
doesn't make
reasonable
sense.
thing to do
Right.
is to quit because
But
there
he
will be
said,
certain
if
stuff
you're
that
passionate
comes up
about it,
that is
and
just
even better if you're good at it. And
so
people don't realize that they're good at
draining
things. Like with
or
real
it's
estate
such
stuff,
a
I'm like,
big
just do this. Well,
obstacle.
how?
They'd be like, you know what,
Real
let me
quick,
just
I
cut my
want to
losses
just
and move
share
on
the
to the next
amazing
thing. Let
work
me
that
just
the
do the
Major
day
Motivation
job thing. It's
Podcast
not
is
worth
doing.
it,
We're already
right?
getting so many great
And
testimonials because of
he
the
was
guests that
right.
we've had
Epic
on
Fighting,
and
it
the
took me
stories
7
that they've
years to make a
shared and their
profit.
actual
So anyone in their right
testimonies about
mind
their
would have
success
quit a
and their
long,
journey.
long time ago. It was
That
like
journey and their
any
successes are
business
helping
person
other
would have been like,
people
this doesn't make sense.
fulfill
Right.
their missions in
But
life,
he
and that's
said,
super
if you're
important. And that's the
passionate
point and
about
purpose
it,
of the Major
and
Motivation
even better if you're
Podcast.
good at
We
it.
talk
And
about
people
all
don't
things
realize that they're good
inspirational,
at things. Like
aspirational,
with
and
real estate
motivational.
stuff,
And
I'm
now
like,
we
just
are
do this.
expanding
Well,
our
how?
reach and saying, hey, if you have a personal brand, if you have a business, if you have a service, and you would like to advertise on the Major Motivation Podcast, feel free to reach out to us at the Majoration Podcast at gmail.com, or send me a DM or jump in the comments and we will follow back up with you. We have pre-roll, we have post-roll, we have also sponsored advertisements that are available slots for you. And this is the early bird because we're still growing, and let's grow together. So reach out to us now, get your opportunity to be seen by so many people with so many influential speakers on this podcast.
Well, how? Oh, I don't realize I've been doing that for decades, and it just comes second nature to me. So you have to think, like, if you got a lot of experience in a certain field, whether you were passionate about it when you started or not, you're probably good at it. He said, but the only way you won't quit is if it's actually interesting to you. So that's why you follow your passion. But if you ask most people what their passion is, same thing as you ask people what they're good at, they don't know. They don't know that they're good at this because they've been doing it so long, and they just assume everybody is like that. And so he said, follow your free time. Like, all right, what am I doing in my free time? Hang out with my kids a lot. Okay, what type of stuff do I do with my kids? Oh, I train them MMA. You know, it's mainly my oldest daughter at the time, because my youngest daughter was really young. She was only a couple years old. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm training her MMA. While she's training, I'll sometimes jump into a class, or I'll take a class after her, you know, and jump in and spar with some people, roll with some people. Um, the only sport I've ever been interested in watching was combat sports. You know, when the first UFC came on, I was just like, holy crap, they're actually fighting. This isn't boxing. Because I was in Taekwondo and Aikido, and I knew, like, boxing is cool, but if someone kicks you, it's a wrap. If somebody takes you down, it's a wrap. I also wrestled. Like, you could take down any boxer pretty much with ease, and the fight's over. So I was always into, like, but who would really win? So my interest was MMA. And so, or combat sports. Now it's just like, well, how do I monetize that? So my wheels were turning around kids' MMA gear, kids' MMA clothes. And then my good friend at the time had already started a company like that. I was like, what are the chances? Like, there wasn't one in the world, and he had started it. And then I was like, well, maybe girls MMA and stuff, because you couldn't find, like, pink MMA gloves. You couldn't find kids MMA gloves. You couldn't find pink wrestling shoes at the time. And it was like, I got this little girl who's into wrestling and fighting and everything, and she can't find stuff she likes. So that's where my head was. Um, and then this guy kept coming over to my workout. So I had a mentor tell me, like, find a way to give back. Money is cool. And if you can find a way to do it where you're actually physically doing it, even better.
Right.
And I said, well, I was a fitness trainer for years. I could do free workouts at my house. I had a lot of room at my house at the time, indoor gym, outdoor gym, garage gym. And I was just like, all right, let's do these workouts free to everyone. That was my give back. Different people would come, they'd bring different people. And one of these guys said he was doing a MMA show in Albuquerque, and he wanted to do one in San Diego, and he heard I was pretty connected. My daughter was doing a lot of competing at the time, so we got to go to different gyms for free. Everybody wanted her to kind of come and train there. And so we would get special invites for tournaments and things like that. And so I kind of knew a lot of people in the MMA community, more through my daughter than through me.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I do know the owners, and I do know the coaches, and I do know, you know, and you know real estate, so you could help negotiate the deals and the terms and the spot, you know, because you know negotiating, and help me get the venue. And I was like, that sounds ridiculous. The first two times he asked me that he came over and worked out, we rolled a couple times. You know, he was surprised I was as good as I was at, like, jujitsu and stuff. And he was just like, yeah, why don't we partner up and do it? The third time he asked, I was like, maybe this could be that little side muse that Tim Ferriss calls it, a muse. It didn't end up being a muse, because a muse is something you work on for like 6 months to a year, and then you kind of set it and forget it. I haven't been able to, I haven't been able to completely free up from it. But it definitely was a passion project that turned into a big deal instantly. People come to the fights and they're just like, wow, like, this is so great that you've grown so big. I was like, our first show was very similar to this. You know what I mean? Like, we knocked it out of the park from the beginning. But once my wheels, I'm an extremist. So I'm the guy who was trying to go carless for a year and then bought 10 exotic cars in 1 year. I went from one extreme to the other. Like, I'm very much an extremist. I'm the guy that got dared to not eat meat for 10 years and then went vegan for 14 years. You know what I mean? Um, and so once my wheels started turning, I already built this company up into something that was like, it looked cool. We hadn't done anything yet, but if you went on the website, you went on Facebook, it looked like something big was coming. Like, who is this company? Where are they from? Like, this is cool. He called me up. He was like, hey, man, I don't really see what value I could add. It looks like you've done everything in a matter of, just a few weeks. So good luck, man. If you need my help, let me know. I wish I knew where he was today. I lost him. I know he's in the Navy. He wanted to be a Navy SEAL, but our first show was a big hit. We broke even, which is a huge success in the fight promoting world.
Oh, for sure.
Second show, 6 weeks later, we broke even again. By our fourth show, we made a big profit, had to turn away a lot of people. And then from then on, it was just like, make a little money, put it in the company, lose a little bit of money. Okay, well, we didn't get enough sponsors to break even, but the crowd was good and the fights were crazy. And we've been doing it ever since. So that's how Epic Fighting got started.
That's amazing, man. I think what's so great about that is that it goes back to like what you said though. Like many other people who have that experience, they're gonna quit.
Yeah.
Because they don't expect that. Because ultimately, like when I came, or even just like you said, the first one had people there, right? People see that end result, or they think the shiny stuff is that's all there is. There's so much more that goes into it. And now
Well,
it's
every show I've ever done, people have always thought I made $1 million on that show. And it's just like, man, I'm lucky if I make 2,000 profit. Like, you guys have no idea how expensive this thing. And this is with people volunteering. Then you start making a little bit more money, and you're like, all right, this person's been volunteering for a couple of years. Let me throw them some cash.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, we made more profit, but we made more gross profit, but we didn't net any profit again. But the thing is like one of the reasons, besides it being fun and fulfilling. So there was 3 reasons why we kept it going with no profit. One, it was fun. 2, it was fulfilling. It was like these people would be doing something a lot less productive with their time 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Some of these people, it's keeping them, it's keeping them focused. It's keeping them from being depressed. It's keeping them from being suicidal.
Giving them purpose.
Keeping them out of jail. One of the coolest compliments, I was at, we would help with the MMA fights at the Del Mar Fair. Del Mar Fair had one that they would do during the Del Mar Fair in the summer. And this guy came up to me. He's like, hey, man, you don't know who I am, but I went to your first ever Epic event. He was like, I was a juvenile. I think they were debating on whether they're going to trial him as an adult or whatever. So he was like on probation. He had gotten some trouble. His probation officer let him come to an MMA event. And he was like, when I saw that, I knew I was going to go back to my probation officer and say, I want to train martial arts. I will do whatever it takes to do that. I'm going to be in the cage someday. And he ended up not only becoming a professional fighter, but he ended up being one of the assistant coaches on one of the Ultimate Fighter shows.
Wow.
And he was like, it changed my whole life. Like, I would have went to jail. And when they saw that and saw I was going to turn it around, that was enough ammo for them to give me a shot and not put me in jail. And I was just like,
wow.
I would have never heard that story. I just happened that he was just walking next to me and just mentioned it. So those are the types of stories that make it amazing. So it was fun. It's fulfilling. Every show you do, you're like, as the stress is building up before the show, you're like, why am I doing this? Is it really worth it? And then the show happens and you feel the energy and you see the excitement and you see the people celebrating, and the whole gyms are celebrating, their coaches, their moms and dads, the whole family, all their coworkers. Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, it's worth it. And the other reason is it opened a lot of doors for me. I was in real estate for 7.
Yeah,
I was in real estate for 7 years. I did great. I won all kinds of awards. I won all types of real estate contests. But I was a realtor. Oh yeah, my mom's got a real estate license. My cousin's got it was nothing that impressive. Nobody wanted me on a podcast because of it. As soon as I did the Epic Fighting show, I was on the news. I was on radio. I was on ESPN radio. All these different people's podcasts. And then it was interesting. I would go to events with people way richer, way more successful than me, and they kind of it felt like they looked up to me. And I asked one of my friends one time, and I was like, "How come you guys kind of it feels like y'all are putting me up on a pedestal, but like I'm broke compared to y'all?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And he was like, "What you don't understand, Jason, is you did something that's cool, and you did something that is way riskier than what we've ever done." He's like, we went to school. There's a formula to become a doctor. There's a
Yeah.
formula to become a lawyer. All you got to do is go to school, make good grades, study, then take this step, this step, this step, and
Right.
then you're guaranteed a job at Kaiser or somewhere like that because you have the credentials to do it. Like it's a format to where you can succeed. What you did was you started something from scratch and you made it work. You built something out of nothing. And people like us admire that because we would never take that chance or don't have the balls to do something like
Yeah.
that. And it worked. You got lucky because it worked and it's cool. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was just like, that's so interesting. Okay. Well, now that I'm cool, let me make some money with it. now,
Exactly.
now let's mastermind and y'all teach me how I can make some money with this thing because I'm not. All my money came from real estate. And I still do real estate. I still
Yeah.
invest in properties. I still help people buy and sell properties all throughout San Diego. I buy stuff in San Diego, Riverside, Detroit. And so yeah, so those are the reasons why we kept Epic Fighting going. And then from Epic Fighting it opened other doors and it spawned other companies and it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, to take it a step further, in regards to why you do it, can you expand upon it being like a great networking atmosphere as well, too, as far as the relationships that you've been able to foster, whether it be partners, sponsors, mentors? Have you had a lot of success in that area just because you have this event that people want to come to?
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's been really cool. Like, if I go to any type of entrepreneurial event or something where there's a lot of cool people, I don't ever have to worry about my introduction not being interesting. You know what I mean? Some people have done some really cool stuff, but it's not exciting to talk about. Like we met the guy who created Mailbox, etc. It's super cool, don't get me wrong, but it's is you know what I
Right.
mean? One of my friends started the game Pictionary. He lived the rest of his life off of that. So it's a really cool story. But that whole thing where you started a fight promotion and so now a lot of these really successful entrepreneurs come to the event. They don't even live in San Diego. Some of them live in Utah, some of them live in Sacramento, some of them live in Hawaii. uh I had one guy who flew in from he was in I don't remember if he was in he did a crazy trip around the world. So he was either in like uh Asia or Europe. He was somewhere far, but he's like, me and my wife are flying in. We're gonna make it to the fights. We fly in that morning. I was like, y'all gonna be jet lagged like a mug. There they were, they were hanging out and they had to go to leave a couple fights early because they were so tired. But there they were, and they're sponsors of the event. So
Yeah.
they're either sponsors or and we started this thing called permanent VIP. Makes it easier to where it's like, all right, you don't have a company to sponsor the event to put your logo on the fighter shorts and the cage and the banners and all that stuff, but you want to come every time and be with those people who can afford to do that and have those businesses, then pay a little bit less per month. We have everything on monthly now, make it easy. We have a show every 3 months. It's like your table's on layaway type of thing.
Nice.
And then we give them extra perks and stuff. And so you get your permanent VIP table. So everyone is like a sponsor or a permanent VIP. And now we got this circle of people that all have tables next to each other. Table, to each table seats 10. And these are the who's of business. These are your millionaires. These are the people doing big things.
Yeah.
And it became like the coolest mastermind ever. They're making bets with each other on the fight and talking crap and building relationships. And now I'm getting texts from the sponsor. Hey, send me next to Abasi's like, send me next to Shapiro. So we got the bail bonds guy that's like, send me next to the criminal defense attorney. And then I was like, hey man, that's Dave Shapiro, the criminal defense. And I'm like, hey, Dave, you usually get an extra table, but you're not this time. But I'm trying to make this permanent layout. but I know you want to be on this side. He's like, yeah, man, you got to sit me next to Greg Reed, so I don't have to walk so far to collect my money. You know what I mean? Because I be doing little baby bets, but it's just fun, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's
And then
like
the atmosphere you guys got is amazing too, though, because you don't just feel like you're just going to watch a fight. It's a lot of different experiences even before the fights, from the
yeah,
music, the networking, the photos, the booths that you guys have all set up as well too. So I think you created a great culture, if that's a great word to use, a great
yeah,
word
we
of
did create a great culture. I learned about culture a few places, and I learned about branding. You want to know where I learned a lot of? So it's funny how you don't know what you're good at. So I didn't realize I was this great at sales and customer service and stuff like that. That came first from fitness training.
Mm,
And then it came from real estate. And I was the one that, like, they were having me teach a lot of the sales courses and the scripts and dialogue courses and stuff like that. And I learned, you know, how to match and mirror, and I learned NLP and all this stuff. And I was like, man, I didn't realize all these skills were so valuable.
it was
And then
priming
I
you for
started,
what you're doing now. It was priming you for what you're
it
doing
was
right.
priming me. And so you don't know that these little things that you're learning, marketing, you know, I had to learn marketing through real estate. And then I had to learn negotiating. You know, I remember when I was a kid, it was like negotiating, and I'm reading all these books. It's like negotiating is who can get the best out of the other person. And then, you know, my mindset switched, you know, a couple of years into learning about it. It's like, no, it's about being creative.
Yes.
Like, and coming up with stuff that works for both of you. I can't tell you how many times two people are trying to get what they want, and they're pulling and pushing and pulling and pushing. And then it's like, wait a minute, I got an idea. And it's synergy. If you read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People,
I have it.
he's like, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, or it's not compromising where 1 + 1 = 1.5. It's not like, all right, I'm not going to get everything I want. You're not going to get everything you want. So let's compromise. No, let's synergize. Let's think of a way to where 1 + 1 = 3, to where we both get everything we want and then some.
Right.
And that's where I came up with the sponsors paying monthly, because it was just like, sponsors want results. The
Yeah.
sponsors want, you know, whatever results means to them, but, you know, branding, eyeballs, you know, calls, website, whatever. And it's like, well, if you sponsor one event, and oh, but I'm out of town for the next one, but count me in for the next. I can't take you off the cage for one event. I can't. That's more expensive than just leaving you on. So I'm losing, and then
Right.
you're losing because we're not giving you all of the, you know, extra stuff and the love and stuff that we should be doing, that we
Right.
should consistently do for at least a year, preferably 2 or 3 years, to really get people to know your name. So let's do at least a year commitment, and you get, you know, you commit to all these shows. What happened after a year? Instead of oh, sorry, someone call. Instead of having like a 50-60% renewal rate, we had a 90% renewal rate,
Wow.
85 to 90%, because everybody saw the value after a year.
Right.
But one show, it's hard. It's like having a billboard up for a day. I don't
Right.
know. Like, did you? I don't know. But you have it up for a year, you're gonna know. And so, a lot of these skills I learned. So branding, believe it or not, I was getting a fitness training certification with 24-hour fitness. They had their own certification. And they said, why do you go past 2 7-Elevens and 2 other coffee shops to get to a Starbucks to
Mm-hmm.
pay more?
Mm-hmm.
Why do y'all do it? You know, the coffee at 7-Eleven, they got some decent coffee there now, 89 cents or whatever a cup. Why are y'all paying $4 for it? You know?
Yeah.
And people were like, and he's like, it's the experience. They've branded an experience. You know what you're going to get. There's a certain type of music playing. The lighting is the same. They spend a lot of time with customer service. You feel special. They get your name on the cup. They call you out. You know, they start to know what you want if you go there. You know, would you like to this, do that? You know,
Yeah.
venti, whatever. And you know, and you know that if you're a little bit hungry, you know what other options they got. You got a scone over here. You got a, you know, and it's like, it's branded wherever you go in the world. If you go to a Starbucks, you're going to get a similar experience. He's like, you know, that's the same way like some people are with McDonald's. Like, you know what you're going to get. You don't have to risk it at this new, you know, Joe Schmo's burger shop. He's like, so that's what, then he was saying that to say that's what we're trying to do with 24-hour fitness. I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do someday with my business.
Right.
And so, 24-hour fitness, they have the same color shirts, and, the upper body weights machines are this color and the lower body this color.
Right.
And the process to check your kid in and out of daycare is the same. And they've branded an experience. I was like, when I started Epic Fighting, I was like, I already know what I want it to be. I want it to be classy and sexy. I want it to be fun. I want it to be, if you go there and you have no cares in the world about MMA. Matter of fact, you think it's violent. You don't even like the idea of people putting hands on each other.
Yeah.
That's cool. But we have fun every time we go. Now, I might watch a fight and it may convert me into a fan, which usually happens. But even if it doesn't, we're dancing, the DJ's playing, the crowd is cheering, we're having fun. And so there's a lot of people that have, some people hang out outside of the venue where all the cars are, and there's all the photographers taking picture, and you can get a picture with the model. You might get a shot with the belt. You can get a picture with the fighter as they're coming in or out. Or another fighter that may be coaching other fighters this time is not on the card. And there's a lot of celebrities, like some of these coaches are really famous people. Some of these, are judges, are referees, the people commentating. These are celebrities that,
Right.
I remember when I first started, I was just like, oh, is that so-and-so? Is that so? And now it's just like, it's normal. It's become normalized. But to the fans, I have to remember, oh, how did I feel when I first saw this person? How did I, that has one of the craziest knockout highlight reels on the internet. And so, so it's just became this experience, and we've kept with that. Before I had any exotic cars, I would reach out to people. I quickly made friends with those people because Epic Fighting was so cool. And I was just like, hey, let me give you a couple tickets, bring your car, park it out front.
Yeah.
And then we had these people wrapping their car with Epic Fighting logos. And I was just like, wow, that's a, $600,000 car that everybody thinks it's mine because it has Epic all over it. And it was crazy, how cool it was that these people wanted our logos on all of their cars and stuff like that.
That is so amazing. I see and notice, from watching you online, and I see, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you incorporate or infuse your family into the inner workings of all the things that you do for the most part.
Yeah.
So how important is that for you?
Well, it's one of those things where it's great that it works out, and if they weren't interested in participating, that'd be totally fine too. But it's fun that they do. So my daughter's been, working the tickets for the longest time. She does the tickets and stuff, and then she brings all of her friends to help scan the tickets in and get the wristband. And then Lily helps with the VIP hosting now. She sits people down where they're supposed to sit. And then JJ's a little salesman. JJ, my 11-year-old, he goes around with shirts and different types of merch, and he sells it to people. And he always has the record for the most sales. He'll sell, $500 worth of merch in a night. And then he gets a cut of what he sells, so that's him making his own money. And so, it's fun to have the family there all kind of chipping in, and they all like it. It's still cool to them. They believe in it,
Yeah. I think it's so cool for them to see just that entrepreneurial spirit and also business, that business, transactional business that you're doing as well too, because you're planting the seed, in them very early. So whatever it is that they're doing as far as aspirations and career wise or industry wise, they're gonna have that foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's extremely important. So going off from Epic Fighting, then we go over to Epic Exotics. Is that one of those extreme moments from you, from going from no cars, then?
Yeah. So I was gonna go no cars, and a couple people that I really look up to, actually, Tim Ferriss, one of them, who I got a lot of friends who know him, but I've yet to meet him personally. I hope to. He went. I think he still doesn't have a car, so I don't think he's probably went like almost 9 years without a car or something crazy. And then I got my friend Dan Fleshman, who last I checked, he was 5 or 7 years without a car. And these are people that I really admire. They talk about how they get so much done. They order Uber Black, whatever, and they're getting chauffeured around basically.
Yeah.
And it makes sense when you look at it. It makes sense. And I was just like, Yeah, man, you got to pay insurance, you got to pay parking, and maybe I will go that route eventually. But my friend was like, "Yeah, but you're not thinking about why you're different." And I'm like, "Why am I different?" He said, "You got 3 kids and 3 pets." And I was like, "Oh yeah, they got no kids and no pets. Dan just had a baby.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Dan." But but I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." Now I have no pets, but and my kids are getting a little bit older to where it might be possible. But at the time, it was like, yeah, I got 3 kids and I got 2 poodles and a wolf. I can't be hitting the Uber up.
You also have a grandchild now, right?
I do, yeah. It's
Congratulations, man.
thank you. Yeah, little Almila. And so, yeah, so I just like, well, if I can't go with no cars, then maybe I'll get a bunch of cars and, started an exotic sales and rental business. And so, someone actually just picked up one of my cars as I've been on the phone with you. I just leave the key in it, they come
Yeah.
scoop it up I leave the little notes of how they can get it and everything. And so yeah,
And did that ideal and concept come from someone else in your circle? You're just like, you know what, I'm gonna do it as well. Like, how did that happen?
yeah, so I talked to a few people that were doing it and they were having some success with it. And really it was kind of an excuse to have every dream car you wanted and still have a cool business.
Yeah.
And instead of having other people bring their cars, exotic cars, I'll have them myself so I don't got to rely on other people that might want to, leave early, or it's hard to get out at the end of the
Right.
night when the crowd is still there even after the fights are over. So I was like, I'll just leave them and keep them there overnight. Um, and so, yeah, I ended up getting, like 10 in one year and then lose some, get some more, lose some. I probably went through close to 20 cars in the last, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And so, learned a lot about it. Learned a lot. I'm looking to sell quite a few of them now. Maybe I'll get trade them for some different inventory.
Nice.
But
What's your favorite one right now? What's your favorite one to drive?
it depends on the mood I'm in. If it's sunny out and I want to cruise the beaches and stuff, I just like the good old fashioned slingshot, no top, it's
Yeah.
fun. If I'm cruising with one person. Uh the McLaren is one of the funnest to drive. I don't have the Lamborghini Huracan anymore. Just the regular Huracan. Not when you start doing too many upgrades and stuff to it, it gets harder and harder to drive. It's too low. It's too this. Just a good old fashioned Huracan. That one just felt so good to drive. I loved driving that one. The roar of it, the way the exhaust would kind of downshift for you when you were. Um, and then when I'm in the luxury mood, I like the Maybach. Whether I'm driving it or in the back, the Maybach is it's a treat. You
Yeah.
don't realize how nice it is. Like you just it's
So
it's
nice.
the Rolls Royce killer. It's like everything that you could think of luxury, they've got it in there. You got the refrigerator in there and the trays and the massagers and the footrests and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the Maybach. But
So
I've been really enjoying the Porsche Macan S as just
okay.
like an A to B car
Yeah.
because the Macan the Maybach is long. It's a big car.
Yeah.
Big heavy V12 car. The Macan, it's zippy, it's fast, it's got a lot of room. You pick up the kids in it, you put a bunch of stuff in the trunk. That's kind of been my go-to lately. But my daughter's favorite is like the Escalade. She just loves that Escalade. Fit all the friends in it.
Yeah, exactly. All the room, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, with everything that you've done, Jason, could you like a summary of 2 minutes, just kind of share some words of encouragement for people on the entrepreneurial business journey in regards to what it takes, some things that they could do, some things they can look out for, so they can kind of go through their whole entrepreneurial journey as well.
Well, I think when you're young, when I was young, I didn't have I was always confident, but it was a different confidence that I have now. And going back, it's like, one of my superpowers has always been like, who cares what other people think? But there was still this fear. Like I was talking to a friend, like I remember some friends, some pretty girls invited me to like go rollerblading. And I'd be like, man, I've never done it before. It might be embarrassing. It might suck. And now it's just like, who cares if I suck at it? You know what I mean? And now I try everything, and then I get good at all these different things, and people are like, oh, you're so talented. I'm like, dude, I sucked just as bad as you're going to suck when you start. The only difference is I didn't quit. You know what I mean? And so I tell that story because I wish I would have tried more things sooner. Now I try everything.
Yeah.
And I think when you're young, that's the time to try so many things. Try so many things and see what you like, you know, and keep defining and redefining what your vision of an epic life is, and then reverse engineer it. Because the thing I see with kids is like, oh, there's a lot of success in dispensaries. Okay, but that you're not like me. I don't smoke weed.
Yeah.
When there was all this money to be made in dispensaries, I'm like, I'm never going to be involved in that business because it's not who I am. I'm not just chasing the money. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, there's all this money in this, all this money. You know, that's not who I am. So find out what your vision of a successful life is for you and reverse engineer it. And then you'll think of different ways. You know, Robert Kiyosaki talks about how he learned really early that the most valuable skill that he could learn is sales. So he got a job at Xerox selling copy machines. He's like, I had no desire to sell copy machines at all, but I knew that I was going to get in front of people. I was going to get in front of business owners, and it was going to be very uncomfortable, and I was going to learn how to sell. He's like, then I could take that into selling real estate or whatever, which he did. But he reverse engineered it because he had a vision of being financially free by learning sales and owning all these properties. And so you got to figure out what that vision of your perfect life looks like. Like I tell people all the time, like my perfect life is I got way more money coming in than I got going out. I don't have to look too hard at prices when I get a flight. You know, there's different levels of wealth, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I would look at a menu, it was strictly numbers. I wasn't looking at, you know, I wasn't looking at the food. I was only looking at the numbers.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
Oh, okay. This is $10. This is $7.99. This is $3.99. I'm gonna have the oatmeal. It was like whatever was the most calories for the price. And so now I don't really look at menus too much, but I still look at like flights and vacations and stuff like that. That's in the thousands. I still look at it. I want to get to the level where I don't have to look too hard at that. So, but basically, financial freedom and then some. You know, I got more money coming in on autopilot or close to it than I have going out. Why? You got to have the why, right? Because I want to be traveling with my kids. I want to be instilling be able to spend time with them, which the life I have now is the life I designed a long time ago. You're just always doing a different version of it, you know, adding a little here, subtracting a little there, realizing that these things aren't as important to you, but you're grateful that you learned it. You know, if I ended up with no cars tomorrow, I'd be 100% fine with that. I've done it. I've driven every dream car, every Ferrari, Lambo, Bentley that you can imagine. I've owned every single one. I'm cool now. Like, you know, now, will I probably have some type of a exotic car in my life? Probably, but if I didn't, I got it out of my system.
I was going to ask you. So we have 60 seconds. Can you tell me one good book?
Okay, so let me get back to it in the 60 seconds. Yeah. So if you ask 10 people if they want to be successful, 10 are going to say yes. 9 of them, if you ask them what success means, they won't be able to tell you. So define and redefine every year at the minimum what success looks like to you, and then manifest that, reverse engineer that, and figure out what routes you can go to get to that place. I know what success looks like for me, so I have the different level of motivation when I'm trying to do something new with epic fighting, when I'm trying to do something with real estate, is to get to that goal.
I love that. That's powerful. That's gold, man. I love that. I love that. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the Major Motivation Podcast.